Okay, we're going to talk about the stage within Vizrt Artist 3, and the stage, you can access that by clicking on the stage button. So we want to talk about what exactly the stage is and why you use it. And before we begin, it might be helpful to open up an actual scene so that we can have something going on within our stage. So I'm going to click on a thumbnail of a scene here, and it has a couple of animations. If I just go through the timeline here, it's just a bunch of elements that we have spinning here. Now, a couple ways that we can access the stage. Number one, I can go in, click on the stage button, and it takes us into the stage itself. And or anytime you're in the scene tree, you can click on a little animation within your containers in the scene tree, and that will take you right into the stage as well. What's more, if you click on that animation on the container, it will actually take you to that animation and highlight it right within the stage. But we don't need that right now. We're just going to discuss the general overview of the stage. And you can see when we did open this up that this is now our preview of all of our animations and keyframes in here. And we can use the stage to manipulate this animation further and to do different things. So first of all, if I come down here into our timeline bar and I hit play, you can see that our timeline here within the stage goes across and it hits certain keyframes and it plays the animation and things happen at certain times. Beyond that, we also have a few things that we have organized over here. We have a director, and within those directors we also have our animations, and it tells you which things are animating here: position, rotation, and such as that. So while we are in the stage here and we have these animations open, let's begin reviewing what some of these buttons are on the left here. And on the left we have these open and close or collapse folders. And you can see when we do that, it quickly just is a way to open and close all of your directors and or animations within the scene. If we click on that, it's the same as revealing the little arrow here too. However, there may be more arrows, so if you just want a quick way to open up everything within your stage, you can use the plus and the minus, which will open and collapse your stages here. And believe it or not, you may have so many animations and or directors and so much going on in here that this whole area will be full. Beyond that, we have a plus and a minus, or a zoom in and a zoom out. This will help us make the text here a little bit bigger, and you can also drag this right a little bit if you need a little bit more room to see that. Beyond that, these are the only options to zoom in and out of that area. However, if you do need to go into the stage itself, you can use the middle mouse scrolling wheel on your mouse to zoom in and zoom out of the stage on the timeline here. Now, the buttons to the right here, the D button and the A button, stand for director and actions, and it's a way to add things within our left column box here. So a director is a brand new director here, and we can click on it and or drag it down into the scene to create a new director. And a director will help us organize our animations and separate our animations. We're going to do more on directors and using them in different videos, so you can check them out. As I mentioned, directors allow us to organize our animations and or put certain animations in a director and use it. Here we have two directors, and we can even slide our directors around and slide them outside of each other and make them non-child directors. So that's what the D button is. It stands for director. Next to the director is the A, and the A stands for action. So when we click on action, we'll get a little box here to name it. And an action will allow us to create an action command within our timeline. So I'm going to click on the little A button here. I'm going to give it a name. Simple name of 1. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to highlight this one action, and I can create a keyframe there, and within this action keyframe I can now write action script, and we have a whole video on action script and how to do that, so you can check that out. And that's how you add action script to a scene within a scene. Now, beyond that, we have our options here to click through our directors, so if you want to just click through in advance, you can use those buttons there. Moving to the right here, we have our animation controls. So here you can see that we have within our stage also our keyframes, and each of these little blue squares represent a keyframe, and in between the keyframe is the animation. And if we come over here on the left, it actually tells us what's animating. So here it says the rotation and it gives us the name, the gray ring, and if we click on it, it also shows us that down in the scene tree. So the container within the scene tree, or the animation icon within the scene tree, is linked to this up here in the stage. Now we're going to close this scene and we're going to create our own animation to review what these buttons are. So I'm going to go into the built-ins and I'm just going to grab an object real quick, and we're going to do a few animations here. So I'm going to add a position animation, and I'm also going to rotate the animation. So we'll put a little rotation on it as well, and then we're also going to scale it as well. So we'll have it start at 1, and then at the end it's just going to scale up a little bit. So I hit play, and here's our animation. Very simple. We're going to go into the stage and it shows us what's happening here. Here's our director. Here's our container. It's named sphere. It corresponds to this container. And now we have a position, a rotation, and a scaling. Each of these blue buttons here represents a keyframe. So if I wanted to come in and add a keyframe at any point on the position, I could just scrub my red timeline here, place it where I want, and say add keyframe, and now it adds the keyframe. We highlight the keyframe and we can come over here and make adjustments right in it. So if I wanted to make it go farther right, I could just add it right there, and you see that it adds the keyframe. Now if we want to delete a keyframe, we can just highlight any keyframe here within the stage and delete it. Also, we have what's called stop points here, and stop points are used within a director to stop it and or create a trigger point. So we can place a stop point here, and what that does when I hit play, it stops the animation right at that point, and then we can hit continue and the animation will continue on. If you want to delete a stop point, there's a button for that as well. We just highlight the stop point and hit delete. Now these buttons over here, these 5, all correspond to keyframes, and when we highlight a keyframe, we get our tangents here. So this one says linear left and right. We can change that. We can change this to smooth left and right, and or a linear left, smooth right, a smooth left and right, and then our tangent handles are the last one. And when we switched through each one of those, we got our different options here to change our handles on the spline. So that each keyframe here, now we can adjust further by adjusting these handles within our actual animation. If we want to click and move around within the stage, we just have to hold down the middle mouse button and you can drag around the entire stage. If we have a keyframe named, we can click on a keyframe and we can name it. So we will name this one B. And if we close this up here and we needed to search for a particular keyframe within our stage, we could type in B there, and we can cite search, and there it highlights that particular keyframe. At any time you can highlight a keyframe and again make adjustments right within this area here. And you can even change the handles here with the angle and the weight, and if you want to turn the handles on or off, you can do that with this little switch right there. Furthermore, we have a couple of other options here on the right. So if you want to zoom in and out again on the stage, there's a zoom to standard that you can use right here, and then a zoom to the whole spline. So if you want to zoom in even closer, we can use that as well. Now to the right, we have our 1, 2, 3, which shows our different splines, and that's why we put a position, a rotation, and scaling on it. Right now, our spline 1 is highlighted, and you can see these handles on that spline, and we can adjust it. When we go to spline 2, we now have a different spline here, and we need to adjust this handle. And we can do that for spline 3 as well. So we have 1, 2, and 3 because the position, rotation, and scaling each have an X, Y, and Z parameter that we need to adjust, and that's why we can come in and select 1, 2, or 3. So to explain it further, you can see that we have the rotation highlighted here, and if we have our spline 3 highlight, it says rotation Z down here, and when we click on spline 2, it says rotation Y, and when we click on spline 1, it says rotation X. So each one of these 1, 2, and 3 is adjusting a different X, Y, and Z variable. Now to the right of that, we also have another option here. It says animate timeline marker, and what that does is when we hit our animation here, our timeline marker does or does not play. So if you want it to play, you make sure our animate timeline marker is clicked on, and that will play it real time as you play the animation. Now there's a little I button here, and it says show mouse over on the frame. That means when you roll over anything within the stage, you either get the icon or you don't. So right now it was off, we don't get anything. I'm going to turn it on right now, and as we roll over this keyframe and or animation here, you can see the little black box with orange letters giving you hints as to what it is. To the right of that little I, we have our timeline here. So we can change our timeline within this stage to seconds, which it is set to right now. We can also change it to frames and or fields. So whichever timeline you want to work in, you can change it right through these three settings here. To the right of that, there's also a grid option. So you can turn the grid off completely if you don't want to see it, and you can turn it on. And then there is also a snap to grid too, which will help you snap your timeline and keyframes to the grid if it helps you. Now beyond that, within the stage, a couple other things you want to note is just that this right hand column here, far to the right, gives you different options depending on what you click on. So if we click on a keyframe, it will access the keyframe parameters. If we click on the animation between the keyframes, it will bring up our looping and swinging animations. If we click over here on the left hand column, you can see we clicked on the container name, and it gives us an opportunity to offset that container, and an offset will just basically move it forward in time so that it's not starting right at 0, or you can have it start wherever you want. It's the same as basically just moving it left and right as well. And if we click on the director name itself, we then have an option to change some variables for the director. We can name the director through here. We can again use an offset. It tells us the length here, so if you want to adjust the length of that, you can. Also the timeline, and if we want to reverse it, you can reverse a director. You can auto start a director so that when you open a scene, it automatically auto plays. And you can use a system time as well. So that's just a brief overview of the stage and some of the functionality, and just a couple of things that you can do within it.